Angel fans, as spring training is arriving, we're wondering, how's Taylor Ward feeling? Is he ready for 2024? And what can we learn about Ron Washington's coaching based on the reports coming out of spring training so far? And is this a good sign for the Angels in 2024? Let's talk about it. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you want to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, and new customers, listen up, join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels, and we're here Monday through Friday, every single weekday, talking Angels baseball with you. It's a pleasure, a privilege, an honor to be your Locked On Angels host, and we're so glad that you're here with us on today's show. Mike, our Angels beat writers like Rhett Bollinger, Sam Blum, Jeff Fletcher, they've been doing a great job covering the team down in spring training. But what can we begin to understand about where our coaching has been the last 5 years compared to how Ron Washington and his staff are handling it now? Well, we're going to discuss that a little bit later on, in particular, how it relates to Joe Adell and some of the other young players. But Mike, first, Taylor Ward, is he going to be good to go in 2024? What do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Taylor because, on the down low, John, he is one of my favorite players. Remember, he got some MVP consideration when he started 2022, right at the beginning of the year, and people were like, "Is he going to be on an MVP run?" And then he literally ran into a wall. So I like Taylor Ward. Rhett Bollinger has been talking about Taylor Ward. He's covering the Angels for MLB.com, and he was there last Saturday to watch Taylor Ward face his first live pitching, John, since he was hit in the face with a fastball. Now, Ward was facing Locked On Angels friend Davis Daniel and Travis McGregor in a live batting practice session. And he said he felt normal, which I think is the best that you can expect and anticipate. He did see one fastball a bit up and in, but he said, didn't bother me. And I think that's the mental side of things that everybody's concerned about. Physically, he's a baseball player. He's gonna figure that out. But the mental side, that's really important for him. So he said, seeing that first pitch go by, I think after that, I settled down a bit. I'm sure he had a lot of nerves. He said, I got back to my approach and I'm doing what I do. That's really all I was thinking about. I had no other thoughts creeping in and no negativity. So I was happy with where I'm at. John, I think that's a good sign from Taylor Ward, who had 3 metal plates inserted in his face and under his nose when he went full reconstruction surgery back in August because of that fastball hitting him in the face. And having a normal off season and being able to step into the batter's box right now and not have any issues, that is good news.
Yeah, absolutely. He said he's been recovered since October and he's been able to have a normal offseason. So that is fantastic news for Taylor Ward. He said he's already been working hard with the new hitting coach, Johnny Washington. He said the two spent several minutes talking hitting after one of his batting practice sessions the other day. Ward said he went through an early season slump due to an issue in his mechanics last year. We'll talk about that in a second. And he was heating up right before he got hit by Manoah's pitch. And Taylor Ward said Johnny Washington has been great. Just all positivity, little things here and there. He seems to be like the piece that we've been needing. So that's great to hear from Taylor Ward. Mike, what kind of Taylor Ward do we get this year?
Yeah, I'm curious about that question because if he gets his mechanics right and if he can recapture the batter's eye that he had in 2022 at the start of the year, John, I think it would be a fun ride for him and for us as Angel fans watching him this season because he was so clutch early on in 2022. And really the Angels kind of fell apart when he ran into the wall and we lost him in the lineup. Remember, he was batting leadoff in a lot of those games as well. He was a game changer for the starting lineup. And so it might even cause Ron Washington to consider like, hey, maybe I should put him up there. I think he'll probably be more in the middle of the lineup, but to have his batter's eye, I think will be really key to this team. But to have the Taylor Ward who is making contact and driving in runs is definitely needed, especially now that Shohei's not in this lineup. We're going to need other guys to step up and to fill in. I think Taylor Ward is one of those guys, John.
Yeah, I think so too. To me, he was kind of the odd man out if we were going to make another signing for like a Cody Bellinger, because there was trade interest in Taylor Ward, and he's older and he's got about, I think, 3 years left on his deal. And so it just to me, it made sense. If you're going to add somebody to this outfield, then Taylor Ward might be the one to be traded, and it could very well still be on the table. However, coming into the season with him, I'm not too worried about his injuries like I was before we heard this news about him, feeling good. And sure, is he going to say this no matter what? I think so. But I mean, Rhett saw it with his own eyes. Like, he was able to see Taylor take some pitches and get some live BP. So I think that is very good. Mike, two things I want to mention. Rhett mentioned that Ward had a mechanical issue in his swing that he needed to fix early last season. What might that have been? Well, I think there's two parts to that. I went on Baseball Savant and noticed that Taylor Ward was swinging at more pitches above the strike zone and not getting a good launch angle, or what we call the sweet spot, Mike. So Ward in 2022 did swing at pitches at the top of the zone, even when he was a hot hitter back then. However, last year, he swung at more pitches above the top of the zone. So not necessarily the top of the zone, but above that. And it resulted in a lot more swings and misses. So if you check out the heat maps between 22 and 23, you can see a lot more red above the zone as opposed to the very top, tippy top of the strike zone. The second part is the sweet spot percentage. So just to give a small definition here, the sweet spot is any baseball with a launch angle between 8 degrees and 32 degrees. In 2022, get this, Taylor Ward was in the 99th percentile, meaning he was one of the best in the league with a sweet spot percentage of 41.8%. So 41.8% of his hits were in that sweet spot launch angle between 8 degrees and 32 degrees.
Felt like it, right?
It makes sense.
He was. Yeah. Totally makes sense.
When you look back on it, it totally makes sense. And that number might have even been better if he hadn't gotten hurt from running into the wall in 22. But listen to this, Mike. In 2023, Taylor Ward's sweet spot percentage fell all the way down to 34%. So it went from almost 42 down to 34. And that actually ranked him 45th percentile of all major leaguers last year. Wow. So he went from being in the top of the league to about the middle of the pack. And you can actually see this in Ward's launch angle from 22 to 23. Now, I looked this up, and an ideal launch angle on a base hit is between 15 and 20 degrees. So again, sweet spot, 8 to 32, but ideal, like, that was a good hit. 15 to 20 is where you want to be. On average, in 2022, Taylor Ward was at 15.8 degrees. So there he is. He's in that ideal launch angle spot. But last year, it fell to 14.3 degrees. So just outside that ideal window. So my theory, if you will, my hypothesis is that if they figure out those issues in his mechanics to where he's hitting the ball, A, in the sweet spot, and B, getting back to that above 15 degree launch angle, I think Taylor Ward could really do some damage. But also, Mike, you've pointed this out before, his eye at the plate and walking a whole lot more in 2022 versus 2023.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to swinging and missing at those strikes above the zone. Or I guess they weren't strikes. They were balls that he swung at that were above the zone.
He made them strikes. Yeah.
He made them strikes. And I think that's the big difference. So Yeah, I'm with you on the fact that I think Taylor Ward's eye at the plate is something that he's going to need to get back to this season, in addition to the mechanic stuff. Do you agree?
Yeah, here's the good news. This detail that you gave us, I love, and the fact that they've noticed a mechanical issue in his swing. The good news is it doesn't mean that pitchers have figured him out. It means that Taylor Ward is needing to work out some things that he's figured out. Mm-hmm. So I think that we could see a trajectory of up and to the right with Taylor Ward this season, and possibly see that early 2022 Taylor Ward if he's recognizing this stuff. Now, pitchers will figure him out, and he's going to have to constantly adjust. But I love that it may be more Taylor Ward than it is the pitcher, which means he's in control of the type of player that he can become this season more than the pitcher is in control, which is why we can get excited about what he could potentially do this season.
Yeah, if you're in control and you're the one making the adjustments and you're working on how to fix things and make it better, you're definitely in the driver's seat heading into 2024. Yeah. And that's where Taylor Ward is right now. Hey, we want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. Coming up on Locked On Angels, got some interesting notes about Joe Adell and the coaching that's been around him, and now the coaching that is around him in the form of Ron Washington. So we're going to get into all of that coming right up.
John, did you see the conversation about the NBA All-Star game from Sunday, and how right before the game, Larry Bird, Hall of Famer, Celtic Hall of Famer, said these guys got to take it serious, and then they go out and they played like a bunch of people my age who are just winded and didn't care. John, it was really awful to watch. They scored a ton of points, but there was a lot of moments where there was no defense. And in fact, one of the guys shot, I think it was a guy from the Mavericks, shot from beyond half court, just threw a shot up. And so it was just very nonchalant. Yeah. And then I saw an All-Star game highlight from years ago. It was like Kobe's first or second All-Star game.
Yeah.
And how intense it was with Stephon Marbury and some of those guys. And so there's been a lot of conversation about that. Reason why I bring it up is because it wasn't really a fun game to watch. But if you made a bet with FanDuel, it would have made it a whole lot more fun, because you could have bet on the points, you could have bet on the spread, you could have bet on like what players were going to score, you could have bet on how lazy they were going to be. FanDuel has it all covered on their app. And if you're a new customer with FanDuel, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your team wins. Again, you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams as the season gets back and gets started again after the All-Star break. You can bet on all of that stuff. And if you're wondering what you can bet on, check out FanDuel, FanDuel.com/lockedon. And that way they know that you came from our show, and you can get a big dub even if your favorite team doesn't. FanDuel.com/lockedon. And FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Hey, everydayers, don't forget, after you're done here on Locked On Angels, head on over to Locked On Sports Today, where they're streaming all the top stories of the day, 24/7, 365, nonstop sports conversation just for you. So head on over to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, get in there and subscribe and be part of the first ever 24/7 national sports streaming channel.
Johnny, you and I've noticed that this spring just has a different vibe about it, right?
Sure.
Like there's a different energy, and we've seen articles and reports from spring training about the coaching staff, and they really seem invested. I mean, if you can get Anthony Rendon out there at 7 a.m. to hit some ground balls, right? Like you know that Ron Washington is a waymaker, miracle worker. That guy is fantastic. So as fans, obviously we're excited about that, because it seems to indicate that the coaching staff is addressing the issues that we've observed on Locked On Angels, that our everydayers have observed. And one of those things that we've noticed, John, is the way that the coaching staff is working with Joe Adell, somebody who's a favorite of mine and somebody who's a favorite of yours. And Jeff Fletcher mentioned this in the OC Register. Why don't you talk about it?
Yeah, Jeff actually had a chance to speak with Joe Adell and Ron Washington about Adell. And here's what Wash had to say. He said he's been trying to take care of himself instead of letting him try to take care of himself and us taking care of him too, Washington said. I think we got him to a point where he's allowing us to be part of what he's trying to do instead of trying to do it by himself. Wait. A player on the Angels, Michael, trying to figure things out for themselves. Where have we heard that before? You know what? Let's come back to that.
Yeah, later. I was gonna say, can we talk about that? But let's continue. We got to address that.
Let's come back to that. Fletcher's article continues. He says past hitting coaches have tried to get Adell to shorten his swing with 2 strikes, telling him he still has so much power that he'll be able to hit the ball hard and possibly still over the fence. But Ron Washington said he'd also like to see Adell use the whole field. It's not just about pounding the ball out of the ballpark, Washington said. It's about hitting the ball around the ballpark, the whole ballpark. We're trying to get him in that frame of mind because he starts learning how to use the whole ballpark because his power is his power, and you don't need to use it in just one area. And that's the type of thing that we've been talking to him about. And as I see it, it's sinking in. And then Adell actually worked with Matt Holliday over the offseason. He said that Adell said that the Holliday and the hitting coaches have encouraged him to simplify his game. Mike, why don't you read those quotes from Adell?
Yeah, he said we're getting back to the basics of really what it's all about. It's just about hitting. It's about finding a good pitch. It's about the simplicity of it all. We can get caught up in the numbers, but at the end of the day, it's simple. It's approach. John, this is like scratching me where I itch. I love this. He also said, I'm looking forward to the consistency of just being out there. I love that he has said that out loud because he needs that consistency. Yeah. He knows, John. He recognizes it. He said being able to play this on a full scale and get myself a full year and an opportunity to go and be on the field every day. And in my same routine, my same approach, and just commit to that approach, I get to see what happens. John, I love all of this, but let's circle back real quick to Joe Adell talking about I'm working on myself, right? Yeah. And then Wash is like, well, let us help you. We remember the story last year. Detmer's working on his slider grip in the dugout and then getting back to being an effective pitcher. He figured that out on his own.
Yes.
It sounds like Joe Adell has been left to figure things out on his own. I'm not surprised by this. Are you surprised by this?
I'm not surprised by this, Mike. And there was, I saw this conversation on Twitter and someone suggested that, Adell's only letting the coaching staff help him because it's his last chance. He's out of options. It's his last chance to make an impression. And I went, hold on.
Yeah.
If you haven't been watching what's been happening with this team, like people are so quick to criticize, but when it comes down to the real things you should be criticizing, if you haven't been watching the coaching staff with this team the last 5 years, then you've been watching the wrong channel because you haven't been watching the Angels. And the fact that we've seen it with Detmers, we've seen it with the regression that Detmers and Sandoval had as starting pitchers. Like Matt Wise lucked his way out of a paper bag in 2022 because he had 2 starters who were phenomenal. And I'll even contend, Mike, that they probably were better because like Detmers was coming up from the minors after 2021 and didn't have Matt's unwise wisdom in his head. But all of that to say, if you're watching this, you know that this has been an issue for the Angels the last few years. The coaching staff has been a bunch of scarecrows just standing there like, I don't know what they do. And I've said this many times. Figure out what you do. We had Jeremy Reed before. We were a little bit more hopeful with Marcus Timms and the fact that he actually had an approach. And it sounds like they had some sort of approach for Adell of, hey, you know what? Even if you shorten up, you're going to hit that ball hard. And that makes sense. But for Wash to come in and say, we need him to spread the ball around, I think that's fantastic.
John, you ever heard the phrase, you don't know what you don't know?
Yes, 100%.
That's what I feel like the Angels coaching staff has been since Soch has left. They don't know what they don't know. That shorten up with 2 strikes, that's what I told you when we were playing softball together, right? That's because I wanted to sound like a cool guy that knew what he was talking about.
And I didn't know what you were talking about.
Exactly, right? And that's what us non-baseball guys, we talk, shorten up, hey, shorten up on the swing, right? Like, and the truth is it probably is a good approach, but it's not a strategic approach. And what I love about Wash is that he's like, hold on, you have power, but let's utilize that. Instead of you trying to yank the ball out of the field with 2 strikes, let's utilize the whole field. Let's utilize what you can do, Joe. That's really important. And in fact, John, you got some good stats here about Adell not using the whole field, and he's really kind of been pull happy, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up because I do have a great example of what happens when Joe Adell does use the whole field, Mike. And maybe it happened by accident last season, but it certainly happened, and it was fantastic. Yeah. There was a triple against the Padres on July 4th. Remember, that was the game that was a disaster, and and we were down like 8-1. And so Taylor Ward's on first base, and Joe Adell gets one pretty much right down the middle at like 95. And where this hit lands is kind of like right past the infield, like right behind where the second baseman might be set up, like, to the right of the second base bag if you're the hitter. It landed past the infield, and it rolled all the way out to the wall, and Tatis Jr. had to run and grab it and throw it back in. And one thing that we underrate about Joe Adell is his speed, and the guy's got wheels. So Taylor Ward scored, and Adell stretched that into a triple, and it was almost overthrown. Yeah, there was somebody backing up the throw at third base, but Adell hit that triple going the opposite way, and it was fantastic. So if we saw more of that this coming season, that would be awesome. But the stats here that I have are related to his pull percentage. Ron Washington is not incorrect, because in 2021, where Adell played 35 major league games, he had a 48.5 pull percentage. About half of his hits were to the left, because he's a righty. In 2022, 88 games was 45.7%. Mind you, last year, pull percentage average across the league, 37%. Wow. So Joe Adell was about 10 points higher than that in 22 and 21. Now in 2023, he only had 12 hits in the 17 games that he was up, but he pulled at 36.4%. So that was a lot less, but he did go up the middle a little bit more. Yeah. So you'd like to see some of that opposite field hitting, right?
Yeah, I think Joe Adell's favorite singer is Beyonce. To the left, to the left.
Oh, so, brother.
Here's what I love about Wash, John, is that Adell is a great base runner. Adell's quick, right? Mm-hmm. And so if he's using the whole field, you're now capitalizing not just on his power, but on his speed and his athleticism. And the Billy Epler guys that he drafted are athletes. They're fantastic. The Angels haven't figured out how to use them.
Right.
John, has Ron maybe unlocked how not just Adell, but like maybe a Jordan Adams, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, bro, if you just use the whole field, you can get 50 doubles. If you use the whole field, you might have 8 triples, right?
Right.
And so, again, like, here's the opening up, drinking the hopium. But I think like this is fantastic.
That was a good pop noise, by the way.
Thank you. This is fantastic that we have a manager that can go, oh yeah, here it is. Experience, evaluated experience matters. And Wash is bringing that to these players, and it fires me up.
Yeah. And honestly, Mike, if it doesn't translate to the field, or Joe Adell struggles with doing some of this stuff, I mean, that's on him as a baseball player and an athlete. Yeah. But at least the coaching is there to say, hey, Joe, use your speed and go the opposite way. And that's something we haven't had. Like, nobody in the organization has seen what Ron Washington has seen in some of these guys. So it fires me up. Again, they have to go and be able to do it on the field, and that's when we can get really excited. Yep. But the fact that it's finally happening and that there's finally some good coaching in place, I think that's going to take this team a long way this season.
Well, as we fire you up for spring training and for the Angels in 2024, let GameTime fire you up and help you to get your tickets. They're the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind when you purchase tickets. We've talked about it on this show before, but let me remind you that when you buy tickets from GameTime, you get to see where you're going to sit before you get there, so there's no surprises. They have all-in pricing right up front, so you know what you're paying for, and you can do it really fast. Once you have an account, it's literally 2 seconds, 2 taps, and then you can get your tickets. They're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. They have game time deals right up until the start of the event, even an hour after at some events. You can find some of those last minute tickets. They have exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals for all kinds of events, sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and they have zone deals where you can pick the section and GameTime picks the seats, and you save about an average of 18%. And then we've talked about the GameTime guarantee. I love this, that if you get tickets in a section, and then you find tickets that are cheaper in that same section, GameTime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. No questions asked. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets from GameTime. Download the app right now, create an account, and then when you do buy your tickets, use our promo code Locked On, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
Mike, as we continue our conversation, this one really fired me up, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. Jeff Fletcher, in the same article, also reported that the Angels are taking a new approach to live bullpens. He said this year, the Angels have been keeping track of the counts as pitchers have worked in live bullpens, as opposed to the more traditional approach of simply having pitchers throw a fixed number of pitches for each hitter. Washington said it's part of an effort to help pitchers learn how to more efficiently retire hitters. The quicker you can get a batter out, you can get deeper into a ball game, Washington said. The time of 5 innings and dive, or 5 and dive, or 4 2/3 and dive, we want to eliminate that. Mike, pitch efficiency. This is what I've been clamoring for.
We're not going to know what to do with ourselves, John. Our fans, Locked On Everydayers, we're going to go, wait, did Reed Detmers just go 7 innings and he only is at 95 pitches? Right. What happened here? We're going to be so confused.
It's insane. He said the time of 5 and dive is over. Mike, I'm not picking on Reed Detmers because he's your favorite. He was just the first one that came to mind. But
he's an easy target.
Can I listen to how many 5 and dives he had last year? So get this: 5 innings pitched, 89 pitches, 5 innings pitched, 83, 5 innings, 95 pitches, 5 innings, 82 pitches, 5 innings, 100 pitches.
Wow.
5 innings, 94 pitches. Mike, 6 games, 5 innings with 80 plus pitches. Yeah. It actually gets worse. And here's a couple of examples. 4 2/3 innings pitched on 89 pitches.
Wow.
4 2/3 innings pitched on 91. 4 1/3 innings on 91. And then the rest of these are just straight 4 innings pitched. He had a game where he threw 94 pitches, 93 pitches, 84 pitches, 96 pitches. So
wow.
In case it wasn't clear before, the pitch efficiency issue has been a problem for the Angels. Mike, I think if we look at this 5-man rotation, this is the biggest worry coming into the season, isn't it? Pitch efficiency?
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're already addressing it now and they're approaching it differently, imagine what this season could look like with Perry Manassian wheeling and dealing and kind of configuring this bullpen. John, no wonder the bullpen's been such a struggling bullpen, right?
And they had no options last year, so you couldn't even call up a fresh arm because you couldn't send anybody down last year.
Yeah, and I would even say that those numbers that Reed put up there, those were similar to numbers that they were putting up in 2022, which is why we had to bring in an Aaron Lube, right? And wore him out as well. And I think that with Wash, you look at some of these starts and you see like 5 innings, 83 pitches. Now, I don't know the context of that start. However, 83 pitches feels a bit low to take somebody out.
You could go more for sure.
And so I think that that's one of the things we're also going to see from Wash is that these guys are going to get a shot to actually go into the 6th inning instead of going, well, they're already at this many pitches and the stats say this and the stats say that. I love that they have this approach. And here's why I love it, because we know that there's kind of been a front office down to the bullpen. Here's what you want. Alex Taman was there. Here's what we need. Here's how many pitches. Here's when to use these guys. What I love about this approach is it feels like it's a synergy between the front office and the leadership on the field, that they're like, here's how this is going to work. Instead of giving us a number, Reed can only throw 89 pitches tonight. What we can do is we can get him to be efficient moving forward, and we're going to count the pitches that he's throwing that don't eliminate him. We're going to count the batters that he's facing that don't eliminate him. We're going to make sure that he is successful up until a certain point, and then we'll see where we're at. We'll evaluate it and then continue or yank him. So there's a whole lot of analytics that's coming into this very much like thoughtful approach from Ron Washington. And it's what we've been clamoring for: analytics and wisdom, baseball wisdom working hand in hand.
Yeah. The analytical side is a lot of what we do here on Locked On Angels. But what we've done with it, Mike, is identify the issues that the Angels have had based on the data that we have in front of us. I mean, it's available to anybody. It's Baseball Savant, it's Baseball Reference, it's FanGraphs. The data is all out there. All that you and I have done is said, hey, you know what the Angels didn't do great last year? They didn't pitch efficiently, and here's examples of that. And now it seems like the Angels are identifying that and doing something about it. So I think that that's something to be hopeful about as well. Mike, question for you. We've covered 3 things that the coaching staff have identified in working with Ward and his mechanics. Adell and his ability to, put the ball all over the field, and then the pitchers and their efficiency. Isn't this what we mean when we say that this coaching staff is going to raise the floor of the team in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. And one stat that I wasn't aware of that I discovered yesterday, Wash has not been a manager of a team that has won less than 75 games.
Yeah, thanks, Jake from John Boy and Talking Baseball for that one.
Right, it was great, and I loved that. So the narrative out there that this team is going to be worse, I get it, because they don't have a great history, they don't have great numbers from the past, but they haven't always been led by great leaders, and now they have great leaders who are identifying what they're good at and how to really make that blow up, how to turn the volume up on that. Joe Adell being the example. Bro, you don't have to just shorten up and try to hit a home run. Use the field. Are we going to see Joe Adell hit 30 doubles this year? Right? Like that could be
nice. Yeah.
Right. And then are we going to see Reed Detmers go 6-7 innings on the regular? We're going to be blown away by that. That's why I think that this team, the floor of this team, will be higher than we expect. My anticipation for this season, my expectation is no expectations, right? But I could see them getting to 80, 81 wins. I could see them getting more than 75 wins. That's for sure.
Yeah, the team has talent. And if you haven't been able to see that, then you haven't been watching, because untalented baseball players don't throw no-hitters. Yeah. Untalented pitchers don't get a 2.91 ERA across a full season of baseball. So the talent is there, but there hasn't been anybody to hone in on it. I've said it 1,000 times, and people are probably tired of me talking about it. But we look at this team and we said, man, there's got to be somebody out there who just wants to get their hands in the clay and make something out of this team. Yeah. And I think that is totally Ron Washington and the coaching staff that he's brought in this season.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, and make your second listen the Locked On first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening to today's show, find today's show on YouTube. Get in the comments section so that way you can interact with Mike and I, and hit that like button on the way down to the comment section, because it really helps us out. It helps us out personally. You're helping out your favorite Angels talkers and content creators. So it really means a lot to us if you could do that. Mike, what do we have on deck for Thursday's show?
Well, we just talked about Reed, and I'm a Reed Detmers fan. I love this conversation that came out of spring training, him specifically identifying how he can improve. So pitch efficiency is always a conversation, right? But Reed brought up a few things that he's noticed about himself, similar to what Patrick Sandoval noticed about himself on the emotional side. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he will put this into play next season. We're going to talk about what he's noticed tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that, and we hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, and we'll see you back here on Thursday.
You said tippy top in the show. I think we should bring that back. Let's just bring tippy top back and make it a manly phrase. Tippy top.
Like it. Tippy top.